Do you know who George Roden was? Because George Roden was quite a character. Let me tell you about him. He was the son of a woman named Lois, who was the leader of a religious group in the late 70s/early 80s called the Branch Davidians. Lois was a little older, and George felt that he was to be the rightful person who should take over as leader of the religious group upon her passing. But George was pretty unpopular, even with his own mother, who started grooming a guy named David Koresh to take over as her successor instead, even though she definitely knew that George, way super wanted to be leader. So naturally, David became George's nemesis. When Lois died of breast cancer, George was angry because David had more support and followers than he did, even though George had kicked him out of the group at gunpoint. And yet George didn't see the connection of how this would make him unpopular. He just felt, why does David have more followers than me? It's unfair. So George came up with the idea to challenge David to a contest. It was that whichever one of them could resurrect a corpse from its coffin would be proven as the rightful prophet and leader. And David is like, all right, you're on. So George goes about exhuming a corpse of a woman who died about 20 years earlier and was praying over it to resurrect her. David is no fool. He uses this moment to report George to authorities about how he's digging up corpses illegally because you can't do that. You can't just go about digging up dead people. And the authorities are like, what the hell? And they questioned George about it. And George was like, no, I was just moving the cemetery. So the authorities told David he's going to have to provide some evidence to prove his allegations because I guess that's a pretty hard story to take seriously. So Koresh and some of his followers decided to just storm the compound where George was living with guns. They claimed that they were trying to get the photographic proof that the police asked for, but they didn't even bring a camera. Just lots of guns and a map of the property that was a battle map with tactical positions marked. George spotted them when they were sneaking in, and a gun battle broke out. George ended up suffering some minor gunshot wounds, and David and his gang were charged with attempted murder. David's followers were found not guilty, and David's case ended in a mistrial, and their guns that were confiscated by police were even returned to them. So David really won that one. Then, in 1989, George was visited by a fellow Branch Davidian follower named Dale. Part of David Koresh's theology was that he claimed there were actually multiple messiahs, not just one, and that he himself was one of them. So Dale came to George being like, hey, George, I think I might be a messiah too, like David. George was absolutely set off, raging mad by hearing this guy claim something similar to David, so George just reacted and killed Dale good and dead, murdering him with both a shot and an axe blow, both in the head. George claimed that Dale was sent to him by David to kill him, so George definitely was pretty obsessed with this thing with David. Anyway, George ended up going to trial and was not found guilty actually, but it's because he was ruled insane and was confined to a psychiatric hospital. But he left behind a lot of unpaid taxes on the Waco property that David and his group started paying, so they moved in and started treating it as their own. And that was the final thing that cemented David Koresh as leader of the group. If you want to know more about the Branch Davidians and David Koresh, you can find a deep dive video about it on my YouTube that is very interesting. If I do say so myself, go watch it and you'll like it. Feel free to follow along for more religious talk. Hey, thanks for hanging out with me. I love you. Bye.